Hi, welcome to our YouTube channel. I'm Erin, the Executive Director of Common Sense Adoption and Foster Care Services, and this is Lori Teeter, our Program Supervisor. We're going to talk a little bit in this video about the characteristics of successful adoption and foster families. So to get started, the adoption and foster care process is a tough one. It's one of those things, people come in, they're really excited.
It's really like nothing else.
It's like nothing else. And one of the things that we've learned in 30 years of doing this work is all that excitement that brings people to the table, brings them in, gets lost pretty early on when you realize how little control you have. You can come in, you get your home study done, you're gunning along, getting things together, and then all of a sudden you reach a point in this process where you are not in the driver's seat. And I think it's really hard for families to adapt and adjust in this process. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we see, some characteristics we see in families who are most successful in this process. And it doesn't mean that you have to be all of these things, but when you're kind of digging deep and looking at kind of who you are and what makes you tick and what doesn't make you tick, look for areas where maybe you can grow a little bit, or maybe know yourself well enough to know I'm probably going to have a really hard time with this because of just who I am. So one of the first things that I see in families who are really successful, particularly in foster care, are those families who are very resourceful. These are the folks that go out and they figure out solutions to problems. They find those connections, those partners, those supports. They're not the do it all on your own, that sort of American ideal of, the cowboy out there kind of figuring everything out on your own. You really need to be able to access resources beyond your home and beyond yourselves to be successful at this. That's one thing that I think really helps people. The next is being flexible. And I'm not talking being able to touch your toes, although that's not a bad thing. I'm really talking about being able to kind of go with the flow. And I'm not one of those people. That's really hard for me. And to do this and do it well, you do need to be flexible. You do need to be able to adjust and respond as, conditions warrant. One thing that happens for families, you'll get a call about kids who are available and you might need to drop everything right here and now. And it's so funny that we get families who come in and they're just so anxious. How long am I going to have to wait? When is this going to happen? And then when we do call and we've got a possible placement, it's like there's smoke coming out of their ears because, wait, I had plans tonight. I have things going on this weekend, and now I have to suddenly change everything. So the more flexible you are, the more able you are to sort of respond with changing conditions, the better you're going to do in the foster and adoption process. The next one's big. We talk about this a lot, is having a sense of humor. If you can't laugh and laugh at yourself, this is a tough thing to do. And so I think when we see families and if you get to know us as an agency, we laugh a lot, and sometimes it's pretty dark humor, but the ability to laugh, the ability to find humor sometimes in pretty tough situations is a real godsend. It's something that's going to carry you. So that's a big one, I think.
Absolutely.
The next thing is what I call a growth mindset. If you're someone who's sort of that lifelong learner, you love learning new things, you love expanding your mind, that's a good starting point. You're going to come into this and there's things you're just not going to know, there's things you're not going to understand, and the more willing you are to just learn and grow
and change.
Yeah.
Often a mindset is, well, when I was a child, and not to say that that's wrong, but our experiences often are unique, very unique, from children who have been traumatized. And so that growth mindset, ability to be flexible and learn is really important.
It is. And the other thing that kind of goes along with that is having insight. When we know our own stuff, whether it's baggage, whether it's, I just know the things that I'm really good at. I know the things that I struggle with, and the things that maybe will trigger me. We have families who come to us who've had amazing life experiences. Sometimes they've had their own histories of trauma and challenge, and that can be an incredibly powerful tool in parenting children with trauma. It can also be a trigger. It's kind of a double-edged sword. So if you have that insight,
Yes.
And you can recognize, especially when you get into the parenting process or you get into navigating the system, knowing sort of your triggers, knowing the things that that might help you or hurt you is again going to help you grow and change and adapt to be successful in this process. The next point, and they all kind of tie together, don't they, is resilience. We talk about resilience in the kids that we work with, but being resilient as a family, being able to weather some storms and bounce back, that's a big strength.
If foster care is anything, it is a roller coaster for almost all families.
Yeah.
And that roller coaster, it's like, I think we can all relate to standing in front of a super coaster. There's no way to prepare for that. There's no way to prepare for how that's going to feel. And foster care is very much like that. It's an emotional ride for everyone. And our job as adults, and hopefully well prepared, is to hop on that roller coaster with these kids.
Yeah. And patience. You need to be patient. You need to be patient with the process. You need to be patient with yourself when you're struggling. You need to be patient with kids who oftentimes are coming in really dysregulated. Yeah. Patience along with being able to sort of delay some gratification. Yes. I think, the roller coaster. There's high emotions, there's big ups, there's big lows, and it's being able sometimes to know that there's a light at the end of this, but it might take a while before it starts feeling satisfying.
And the patience digging into that when children need it the most, because that inability to delay gratification, we often get frustrated at the lack of control, at the lack of timely decisions, and having an awareness and understanding that that is a challenge is very helpful.
Yeah, and I think, sort of the last point I'll make, and it's not an exhaustive list, but I think if you're a creative person, creative at problem solving and coming up with, creative solutions, because, there's all kinds of advice out there. There's whether it's just general parenting advice, whether it's general adoption or foster care advice. Sometimes, again, digging through all the things we've talked about, being resourceful, flexible, having a sense of humor, being willing to learn new things, also being creative in this process, because what works for you and your family and this child or children that you're parenting might be a whole mix of different kinds of approaches, and tomorrow's a whole new day. You might need a whole new
what worked
set.
Yesterday may not work today or tomorrow.
Right. But back to another thing that you said, I think that for a lot of families, this whole process can really tap into a lot of emotions, and
it
a lot
can
of
feel
fears,
very intrusive
and vulnerable, and working with an agency like Common Sense, where you can feel safe coming to your caseworker, coming to the team that's helping you, and being vulnerable and being willing to reach out and ask for support, advice, guidance, someone to talk you off the ledge if it's a really tough day. Again, finding that right fit, finding an agency that you feel is really going to support you when you need that support, where you feel safe, Pick that right agency from the start, because if you don't have that, that's part of your team. When you're doing this, the agency is a big part of your team, and if you don't feel safe and supported, you're going to have a really tough time. So if you want more information about adoption and foster care, check us out. Check out our website, social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram. But most importantly, give us a call, because we're here to help. Thanks.